I'm telling you right now, be ready for an offensive explosion from Indiana basketball this season.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this, the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here and truly making this your first listen each and every day. Shout out to all of my everydayers, those of you that come back each and every day here on Locked On Hoosiers. And a reminder that this show is free to you every day, Monday through Friday. Well, Mike Woodson opened up the basketball season with his weekly, or I guess his yearly press conference, that is. He'll do more throughout the season, but this one opened up the entire season for Indiana basketball. Had a lot of interesting things to say, including how offensively this team's just got to flat out be dominant, which is why I'm telling you that you need to be ready, whether you're an Indiana fan or whether you're not and you found your way to this podcast. Just be ready for an offensive explosion this season. We'll talk about what that means and how that impacts what this team can do this season, plus just how deep this team is for Indiana basketball and head coach Mike Woodson. And then we'll go on the football side and look around the Big Ten on who is a threat in the top of this conference and why it very well could be your Indiana Hoosiers. Well, as I mentioned, Mike Woodson opened up the season this week with a press conference talking about all the things that happened throughout the summer, about individual players, the style of play, what we can expect, and all those great things, and had it for men's and women's basketball. But I want to focus on the things he talked about for his men's team, in particular, just how good offensively this team is going to be. And it started out early in the presser with some of these questions and comments that he had and talking about Myles Rice and Cannon Carlisle. I'm going to read you some quotes throughout this segment today because I want this to be, I want to have some support for what I'm telling you. He says, we're deeper than we have been in the past, and we'll get to that as the show goes on. We have guards that are a lot quicker than we've had in the past. I think Myles and Cannon give us a different look. And I'm going to start right there because he's exactly right. And that's what we expected to see and hear, I guess, for right now. That's what we wanted to hear from, or I guess, about Myles Rice and Cannon Carlisle. You bring in two guys who were playing Power 5, Power 6 basketball, RIP to the Pac-12, but you bring these guys in because you expect them to be high level. You expect them to be a starting level guard. You expect them to be faster, physical, better overall than what we've had in the last handful of years. Because while we've had good guards, we have not had great guards. And that's why you go and get guys out of the portal. And so, yeah, I think that will contribute to an offensive explosion this season for Indiana basketball. He also talked about the development of Mackenzie and Mgbako, who we know had a really good freshman season, started a little slow, and then picked it up as he went on. I've been telling you, my everydayers know this, I'm waiting for the sophomore explosion, the sophomore surge, if you will, for Mackenzie and Mgbako, who he says has only gotten better and wants him to be the focal point of the offense. And he also talked about Malik Reneau, who he says we've tried to move a little bit away from the basket this summer, and my guess would be because of the 7-foot Oumar Ballo that's standing back there behind him like the oak tree that he is, right? It makes a little bit of sense for Indiana to sit back and say, okay, we have Oumar Ballo, who is a 7-foot monster that we're going to throw the basketball to on offense, and we're going to rely to protect the rim on defense. That gives you an opportunity to, move Malik Reneau around a little bit and do some different things, show some different looks. And Mike Woodson was telling us offensively, he's been really, really effective out there, knocking down shots, putting it on the floor, making plays with the basketball in his hand. I'd love to see, oh my gosh, I'd love to see him become a facilitator from that spot, right? As a near 7-footer who's standing, let's say 15 feet from the basket inside the perimeter on the right or left wing. I'd love to see him, do one of those numbers. People just had a great look at that on YouTube, by the way. Just pass the basketball, to be an assist guy. If you're Malik Reneau, would love to see that. He did say, however, that impacted what he's doing on defense. He said he's struggling to guard the smaller people, the smaller players who are on offense. And so he said he's trying to guard guys like Luke Goody, which I think is fantastic. So yeah, offensively, this team will be much, much better. And he was asked about, Mike Woodson was asked about the expectations of this team. He said, I don't want to talk about last year. It's done. It's over with. We are a different team than we were a year ago. And he says, I expect us to run faster. I expect us to be more physical. And I expect us to shoot the ball a lot better. And it's no secret to you, if you're an Indiana fan, where this team was horrific shooting threes a year ago. One of the best teams at 2-point field goals in the entire country. But they couldn't shoot the three to save their lives. Also couldn't defend the three, but that's a different conversation. Doesn't matter how good you are at layups and dunks. If the other team's hitting threes, three's more than two the last time I checked. And so Mike Woodson was very open in his season opening presser, where he wants this team to flat out be better. And I think you can expect to see that, Hoosiers fans, offensively all season long, because of the talent, I guess the step up in talent that we took at the guard spot. Mackenzie and Mgbako getting better. You still have Malik Reneau as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. And then Oumar Ballo, you replace one 7-footer with another one. Khalil Ware, of course, going to the NBA. And then the depth factor as well. Still having Trey Galloway, still having Luke Goody, still having Bryson Tucker if he does see the floor a little bit. And even Gabe Cupps if he can develop his offensive game as well. This team has options, and that's what's exciting and what will contribute. I'm not saying it could. It will contribute to an absolute explosion. It will be night and day offensively for this team from last year into this year. I guarantee it. My personal guarantee, it will look better and just flat out more fun to watch for Indiana basketball offensively this season than what we've seen in many years past. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, what will contribute to the offensive success and hopefully some defensive success as well is the depth of this team. Mike Woodson had comments about it. We'll break those down and give you my thoughts as well coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, but it's hard not to talk about it because it's America's #1 sports book. Well, we've got something going on right now for you through September 22nd, okay? All FanDuel customers, that can be you, can bet just $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. That's what I do every Sunday. I watch my teams play. I watch all the teams play. And I use NFL Sunday Ticket to do it through YouTube TV, and FanDuel wants to hook you up. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com, okay? That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Roy. Hey, Hoosiers fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You. It's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and, hey, keep your favorite players out of the transfer portal. And as you all know, NIL has changed the game forever with athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. You can engage with athletes on their NIL journey. By using Roy, fans not only support athletes financially, but they also become a part of their name, image, and likeness journey, helping them succeed both on and off the field. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter the referral code LOCKED ON. Okay, that's LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android, that's ROI, and start making an impact on your favorite team. Use the referral code LOCKED ON for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Support the players, change the game with Roy. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen every single day, your first watch if you're on the YouTube side of things, and making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. If you're looking a free way to support this free show, an easy way to support this free show, you can do a couple of things for me very quickly. If you're on YouTube, like the video, that gets it out there, spreads the word, helps everybody find Locked On Hoosiers. You can comment down below which player will have the breakout season for Indiana basketball this season. Offensively, defensively, leadership, you tell me. Who has the breakout season? Comment that down below. And then the best way to help us out, you see the Locked On Hoosiers logo? Just to the right of that is the subscribe button. You become an everydayer. You know when every single video we post gets posted, goes live. Be sure you do that for me on the YouTube side. And for all my audio listeners, be sure that you are following us there and have notifications on, whether it's Spotify, Amazon, Apple, doesn't matter. I don't want you to miss an episode of this, okay? You don't want to miss an episode. We're having too much fun. So be sure you've done all of that for me, okay? I really do appreciate it and your support. And what I also appreciate is an Indiana basketball team that's going to have more than 6 players who can play at one time. That's right. Mike Woodson told us in his press conference this week, this is a really deep team. He has a quote that legitimately says, I wish I could play 12 guys. And that's a great sign. That's a great problem to have if you're Indiana and Mike Woodson. He said that's just not how it works in college or in the pros. And from what I can gather from how he was talking and the things that he said and the ways that he said them, we know who the starting 5 is going to be. And we know who the first few guys off the bench are going to be. But some people started to press a little bit more and were asking about Ja'Kai Newton, who he admitted, he said, look, we can't keep him on the floor. He can't stay healthy. He can't get back to where he needs to be. And I know that is very frustrating to a lot of people, man. It really is. It's sad for him, first of all. It's very upsetting to hear that he just can't get back, man. And I hate to hear that about Ja'Kai Newton. But he also said that Bryson Tucker and Gabe Cupps, 2 guys that have completely different scenarios, 2 completely different stories, but are almost looped together because the question becomes, how much will they play, right? How much will Gabe Cupps and Bryson Tucker play this season? In terms of depth, I mean, they're nice to have. There's no doubt about it. You know my feelings on Gabe Cupps from a year ago. I think he stepped in, did a good enough job. I think he was put in a really, really tough spot game after game, not knowing if he was the starter or the backup with Xavier Johnson's injury problems. And look, Gabe Cupps, offensively, defensively, he was just not what we needed at that spot. No hate against the kid. He fights for Indiana. He plays for Indiana, and I really do appreciate him. But I just don't see him playing a lot this year. And I'll make this statement. Right now. This has nothing to do with Gabe Cupps. Has nothing to do with his ability. Has nothing to do with his skill. Has nothing to do with him personally. I don't know the guy. But what I will say is if Gabe Cupps has to play significant minutes this year or does play significant minutes this year, Indiana's in trouble. And I hate to be that way. I do. But we have enough talent to where we shouldn't have to go back to that wishing well time and time again. That watering hole is sucked dry, and I don't want to go back there because Indiana should be in a better spot this season at the guard position. And you're trying to get that way for the future too, right? It's why you're recruiting guys like Braylon Mullins and Trent Sisley and Michael Brown Jr. specifically at the point guard spot. So if Gabe Cup sees the floor a lot this year, then we're in trouble. Bryson Tucker, on the other hand, is a much different situation. Star-studded freshman, don't know a whole lot about him in terms of what he's going to do in the college game. And there's just a lot of guys in front of him right now. And that's really tough for a guy like that to see and understand and hopefully just work harder and be better and get better because of it. And I would love to see him play some this year. How much will he play? I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see, because this team is really, really deep, man. You've got your starting five. You have Galloway and Goody and Hatton that are going to be coming off the bench for this team. Woodson says he wants to play 12 guys, man, but he also did say, if I can legitimately play 10, I will. I'll do it, is what Mike Woodson said. And if that's the case, then okay, let's roll. Don't think he's talking in the platoon system that we saw John Calipari try to run way back when at Kentucky, but he's going to try and play some dudes. And that makes this team dangerous offensively, looking for the surge that I think we're going to have, but also defensively and in transition. Woodson talked about wanting to run off of made baskets, something we just didn't do a whole lot of last year. We also didn't push it in transition at all a year ago. If you were here a year ago, you know I was hammering that game after game after game because we just let the defense get set. We would never push the basketball when we got it. But Woodson was talking in particular about pushing the basketball off of an opponent's made basket, getting the ball and going, running and getting up and down the floor, and even just running back after one of our own made baskets, I think is a way to look at this as well, because, man, we got to get back. I'm tired of getting cherry-picked and beaten in 2-on-2s or 2-on-1s because we're not hustling down the floor. That cannot happen. And I think with the depth and the skill and hopefully the maturity of this team, I think we won't have that problem this year, because we're also, think about this too, Hoosier fans. Think about February and March. Rather than the same 6 or 7 guys being absolutely drained because they've gone so long every game all season long. Remember how we just fizzled out in the Big Ten tournament by the end of it because we just couldn't hang anymore? That's not going to happen here. That's not going to happen this season, because this team will be better, stronger, and deeper. They'll be better offensively, running in transition, shooting threes, scoring time and time again, basket after basket after basket. No major lulls in the offense or droughts offensively in scoring baskets. Yes, it'll happen here and there, but not as much as we saw in the past. But then defensively, there are fresh bodies. There are people waiting for you to sit on the bench and replace you. Go, sit down, get some water, get a towel, watch the game for a second. We got you, is what this Indiana team is able to say. And that's a luxury, man. That is a luxury that we did not have a year ago. And it's going to benefit us. It's going to benefit us quite a bit, especially late in Big Ten play, a conference that I think will be really, really good, really, really deep, really, really stacked this season. And I hope, right, the initial, or I guess the eventual hope is this helps us when postseason play comes around. Big Ten tournament, and more importantly, the NCAA tournament. Make a run because of all the depth that we have. It will make us better offensively. It will make us better defensively. And hopefully, too, something we've had to deal with a ton of here at Indiana, it will limit the injuries that we have against our guys as well. All of those things will make us a better basketball team. And we learned a lot of that by Mike Woodson's words in his season opening press conference during this week. Well, coming up on our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, going to look on the football side, taking a look around the Big Ten. What in the world's going on in this conference, man? All sorts of things are happening. Some teams are winning, some teams not so much. And we'll talk about where Indiana could stack up in this conference over the next few weeks. We'll have that for you in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. This is my go-to ticketing app. I don't have any other ones. I don't go to any other site. Game Time is the only place when I'm buying tickets for sports, music, comedy, theater, doesn't matter. I go to Game Time. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks. What it does, it filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through all the hundreds and thousands of tickets when all these different venues, man, they have all different seats. But Game Time's going to take all that out, and they're going to let you pick the best seat available. I use Game Time for all my sporting events. I've used it for comedy. I know people that have used it for theater and musicals and all sorts of different events. And their lowest price guarantee is one of the reasons I continue to go back time and time again. Plus, they do have event cancellation protection, so you're always protected. You never have to worry when you use the Game Time app. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase, okay? Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is Game Time. Back with you here on the Thursday edition of Locked On Hoosiers. Schedule's been crazy. All right, schedule's been crazy. I had to think about it for a second. Don't judge. Don't judge. We're here on the Thursday edition of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being here. And if you're looking for your second or even your third listen and watch today, because Locked On Hoosiers is absolutely your first listen and watch every single day. This free podcast to you, by the way. You can check out a couple of our other Locked On shows here at the Locked On Podcast Network. We have Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin every day, talking the biggest news around college football, which we are going to get to in just a second. And Locked On College Basketball with Andy and Isaac. They do a wonderful job, Andy, Pat, and Isaac Shade, who have their own respective college basketball podcast. Andy does Locked On Zags, Isaac does Locked On Tar Heels, but they come together and they talk about all the biggest news in college basketball. So make that your second and third listen and watch today and every day right after you watch and listen to Locked On Hoosiers. And we're talking football in this final segment because I simply just want to look around the Big Ten in college football this season, because I want to look and just have a discussion about where the Big Ten is right now through 3 weeks of the season. Standings wise, you know who's at the top of the Big Ten standings. It's the team that has scored the most in this conference so far. It's the team that has the biggest blowout win so far over a conference opponent, and one of only two teams with a conference win. That's right. It's your Indiana Hoosiers. And lots of questions have been flying around about, okay, we're 3 weeks in. What do we know so far? Who's real? Who's not? Who's a pretender? Who's a faker? Who is a legitimate threat to be a playoff team? And I know you've seen the numbers. Indiana has playoff chances right now. I totally get it, but I think we should pump the brakes a little bit and just see how this season goes. But if I had to throw out a couple of teams, because you look at it right now, and this is as of this week, the AP poll, okay? The Big Ten is really well represented, which I think is promising. I don't know how it'll look towards the end of the year. Not super confident in that, but it's looking really good right now. Ohio State's at 3. You have Oregon at 9. Penn State at 10. I'm not sold on them, but that's okay. You have USC at 11. Big game this weekend. Michigan, number 18. How about Nebraska, 22? Illinois, 24. Top 25 matchup tomorrow night on Friday for those two, so keep that in mind as well. But I'm just not sold on all those top 25 teams. Michigan, no, absolutely not. Illinois, I don't know. I think I'm taking them against Nebraska. I have no reason to, but I will. Nebraska, I'm not buying in on until they can prove to me that they don't pull a Nebraska, same way we see with Tennessee every year, or you see with other teams around college football. Like, they're going to harm themselves. Just wait for it to implode, right? I also look at Penn State, who I don't believe in. Oregon's a massive question mark. And speaking of Oregon, Spencer McLaughlin, who does Locked On College Football, he's a Ducks guy. So go talk a little smack to him in the comments. But I think USC is the one that I'm just really up in the air on. They're at Michigan this weekend, at the Big House, and they're favored in the Big House this weekend too. I just don't know, because USC, they're riding on their win over LSU in the first week of the season. I just don't think I'm sold on them either. And some of these teams I hope do end up coming to fruition and become good football teams. But we need to put Indiana in this category as well. We need to be included in this conversation, especially after we beat Charlotte this weekend, once we beat Maryland next weekend, and we really start to get on a roll. Because I don't know if you remember what our schedule looks like. It's not all that bad. It's not all that bad. Maryland at Northwestern, Nebraska right here in Bloomington, Washington here in Bloomington. We go to Michigan State. Ooh, we also have Michigan coming here to Indiana. Imagine how big of a game that could be for us, right? On the road at Ohio State. And then you have Purdue at home. So possibilities are endless, my friends. Possibilities are endless. And while nobody wants to respect us, nobody wants to say that we're a legitimate threat, that's cool. Let the rest of the conference eat itself alive. Let everybody else flame out and burn a flat tire on the side of the road. And here we come. We just keep on chugging along, taking care of business. And all of a sudden, it becomes the end of the year. And we're like, oh, snap. Indiana's at the top and has a threat to be a legitimate postseason team. Just keep that in mind, because I think that could happen. I think we could pull that off here in Bloomington. But a lot of season to go, a lot of games to happen. And the first one you got to worry about is Charlotte this weekend. Don't fall flat. Take care of business and move in to a confident rest of your Big Ten schedule. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here, supporting this show. When I tell you we're growing like crazy, we're growing like crazy. So thank you so much for that. Yes, you right now, you are the reason for that. So thank you for making this your first listen, your first watch every single day. If you're on YouTube, be sure you like the video, comment down below. What will Indiana football's final record be this season? I got to know. Or maybe even score predictions for Charlotte. We need to look ahead to that as well. We'll have that on tomorrow's show for you. So have that in the YouTube comments as well. And then the best way to support us, right to the right of our Locked On Hoosiers logo on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. That way I know that you're liking the content, you want to see more, and that you're going to be back for another episode. And good news is we got one coming for you tomorrow. So come back then, why won't you? Locked On Hoosiers every single day. It's free to you in your inbox, audio and video. And we're back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.